The mission of FSU Coach is to prepare and equip the next generation of coaches and sports professionals with best practices and current research to enable them to pursue excellence. We have 2 academic programs, the online graduate certificate, which is 4 classes, and also a 10-class master's in athletic coaching. Our graduate certificate and master's program can be started at any time, either the summer, fall, or spring.
The types of classes that we offer focus on the athlete as a whole person. We focus on the theory and practice, the research, the helping skills. I came to FSU Coach because I truly believed in the mission and the purpose of the program.
I think I have my dream job being a head coach at Florida State, but I know there's always more ways that I can help my athletes and better prepare as a coach. If you're interested in going into coaching or joining the FSU Coach program, I would just say don't even think about it and do it.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of FSU Coach Live. My guest today is Adam. I'm about to mess up your name again, but I'm going to go for it. Palczewski. Palczewski. Darn it. Adam, it's so good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into coaching and what you're doing today.
So, one of the biggest advantages that I've had was growing up rurally in North Dakota with a county with a population density of less than 1 person per square mile. Grew up on a farm, worked really hard, and had an opportunity after high school to go play football at North Dakota State University. And things just kind of aligned there where I got some phenomenal instruction on coaching from some great coaches, guys who have won national championships at the highest level of college, guys that are in the NFL that have been NFL head coaches. And those guys really gave me a great base. I wasn't the best player, so understanding how to take advantage of things, watch film, put in hard days, long days, just to kind of just almost stay on the team, just fighting every day for that was a great thing. But those guys that I had there, they're always encouraging. Doesn't matter if you were playing, if you were a star and had a shot at the NFL, or if you were a walk-on, didn't matter. They coached you the same way. They gave you every opportunity that you had earned. So that's, a seminal moment in my coaching journey. And then after college, I traveled around a little bit. I coached football and taught in Duluth, Minnesota for a year, and then went down to Denver, Colorado for a couple years, taught at some different places. 2 stints with football as an assistant. One, we were 0-10. That was a learning experience. And the next year I moved to a different school and we were 10-0. Also a different experience, different demographics. I've taught, that's one nice thing about teaching and coaching is you learn that all kids want the same things, but they don't start at the same place. So that was something that was apparent to me in my 2 years in Colorado. And then moved back home to North Dakota, other side of the state, on the east side of the state now, but it'd be my 16th year here. I spent, plan on being a football coach. That was my thing. And then I kind of got into basketball my last year in Colorado through a mentor of mine, and then came here and got asked very late in the season to be just a freshman coach. And I did that for 4 years, and I coached the sophomore team for a couple years, JV team for a couple years, and then I've been the head coach here for 7 seasons. This is going on 8. Basketball starts here in about a month for us. So that's where I'm at right now.
You do a lot. You coach a lot, and you're showing some versatility in coaching some different sports. I want to go back to what you said. You coached a team that was 0-10. You coached a team that was 10-0. We often idolize the teams that go 10-0 and the coaches that are involved. It is interesting because fans, players, parents, often if you're successful, you went 10-0, you must be a wonderful coach. If you went 0-10, you must be a terrible coach. But you just did it in 2 years at 2 different schools, showing you that it's not completely about the coaching. What was your experience like in an environment where your team was on paper unsuccessful?
So, leadership and coaching does have a lot to do with it, but also where these kids come from. So I was in a school that 0-10 year where the kids didn't have a lot, and football was not their number one sport. Soccer took the best athletes. Football did not have the best athletes. We played in a league where we could have been competitive, but the hardest thing every day was trying to get the kids to put themselves out there without any fear and play as hard as they could play. In my mind, and I've said this since I've left there, we never had a game where we played as hard as we could play. Whether you're being perfect or not doesn't matter. Those kids wouldn't give out everything they had. And I think it was kind of a protection thing. They didn't have a lot to begin with. They kind of had some low self-esteem overall in general. I learned that teaching at the same school as well. So it was a way to say to themselves, they didn't win, that, well, I didn't try that hard, or the coaches, those things kept creeping in. And then the head coach and the offensive coordinator at the time, they made excuses. And that's something that just bothered me, because with my college experience, we moved classifications during my time in college. So we had some difficult games against some really good teams, and we'd come away with a close loss. And Craig Bull, who was the head coach at Wyoming, was my head coach at the time. And he said it after our first really close loss against a big team. He said, there are no moral victories. Moral victories are for losers. So that mindset, to me, where if you play as hard as you can play, you actually do have a chance to win on the scoreboard, not just a feel-good thing. And sometimes that is what it takes. Sometimes you are not talented enough and you just can't beat the number one team in the state. But having that mindset where you are pushing and getting the most out of your athletes and kids is something that stuck with me. And I remember being on the sidelines, and our coaching staff, the head coach, they're yelling at the officials to not call penalties because we're behind by so much, not realizing that, maybe we should clean up the penalties.
Yeah.
We have a lot of control over how our kids play. And you can't, if you don't want them to make excuses in life, you can't be the one hollering for excuses and free passes and that kind of stuff. So that stuck with me a ton. And nice guys, really nice guys, but it wasn't a place where we were really getting the best out of our kids and teaching them to be the best they could be.
You've coached basketball, football, track and field. How is coaching different across sports, or is it?
It is different. The biggest difference I find is between the team sports I coach and the individual sport like track and field that I coach. In team sports, you can put kids in different positions where they can be successful in a certain role. Maybe in basketball, they're not the best scorer, but they're a great defender. They rebound, they make winning plays. So they can be on the court because they serve a different role than the star player who scores all the points, and they know how to work together. In track and field, when you're in the ring, or I'm a throwing coach, so when you're in the ring, there's no hiding. If you throw well, it's because you threw well. And if you don't throw well, it's because you didn't throw well. And that's really something that lays your soul bare, so to speak, especially for the kids that really care and are really trying. They want to be good every time. So you try to get them in a space where they're not thinking about the result, where they're thinking about their process, thinking about how they start to throw, maybe one thing they're trying to work on through practices. And a lot of times, especially when I first started coaching track and field, the students, the athletes, they wanted feedback after every throw, and they got to get used to not needing that all the time and getting their own feedback, feeling how their body feels when they throw a discus or a shot put. So a lot of teaching in that realm, as far as teaching kids to coach themselves and feel their body and how it goes through. But I mean, those are the biggest differences. Is there's only one role on a track and field team, and that's to do your events. Whereas in basketball or football, you can move kids around and put them in different positions to be successful based on the tools they have.
You're working in the school system, and when you're working with adolescents, parents are also attached to that responsibility. How have you managed may be the wrong word. How have you worked with parents to ensure that parents aren't the problem in your program?
Well, I have seen it where they are, but not as a head coach so far. I think the biggest reason is from the first day, I let them, and this sounds different, but I let them know I don't really care what they have to say unless it's about their kids' welfare. Meaning, hey, my son is really struggling mentally right now. They have something going on. Will you look out for them? And we have those open conversations with parents. They'll tell me that stuff all the time. And that's really nice that they trust me with that. But I think they understand that their sons, and in track and field, their daughters as well, are getting really good value from playing basketball at West Fargo High School. We teach kids how to play the right way. They play hard all the time. That is one of our reputations throughout the state, is that we will always play hard, and we will play 36 minutes end to end, no matter what the score is. And I think parents appreciate that their kids are working hard, they're getting coached hard, but never in a demeaning way. You can draw a lot out of a kid without being hurtful. So we don't really play in that kind of space as far as our hard coaching. And I think just being here long enough and having a lot of good results, making state tournaments, having a state championship does help your reputation a little bit. But our last 2 seasons have been losing seasons. We've had losing records, and still, at least to my knowledge, no one has come up to me and had an issue with the way I'm coaching or how I'm doing things. I think they recognized that maybe we weren't the most talented team, but we won games we weren't supposed to win. So I mean, last year at the end of January, we were 4-10 or 3-10, something like that, and we ripped off 6 wins in February and made the state tournament. Just beat some really good teams at the right time, and that's kind of what we coach to. Is you can't be good an entire season. You have to. Even the early games are like practices. You're working on different things and trying to get kids some confidence and know their roles. And I'm pretty open about telling parents my style in that way. I think the honesty helps a lot now that you're looking at character traits, why I don't have the worst issues with parents. I have some pretty good relationships with parents. It's because I'm just honest. There's no beating around the bush and trying to hint at things. It's, hey, this is where we're at. If you have a question, I'll tell you directly. I won't use 100 words to tell you what 20 words could say, those kind of things. So they appreciate that around here. So I've had good luck, even though I've seen some bad things. I've had good luck so far in my 7 years.
You said, I wrote it down, you can't be good the entire season. Expand on that a little bit by what you mean.
It's, well, a couple things. With basketball, we only have 9 practices before our first game, so you can't have everything in. So you have to rely on what your kids did last year, what you did in the summer, teaching the pillars of your program and just how to play. Because early on, you're not going to have scouting reports on every team. You're not going to have all that stuff that you'll have by tournament time. So you're just kind of not necessarily rolling the ball out there and saying, have at it, guys, but you're letting them play. You're letting them discover different things. You're letting them be creative, especially early. All I'm looking for is, are you playing as hard as you can play, like really with a lot of intensity? And are you making smart decisions? And if you don't make a smart decision, how fast can you get over that decision and keep playing? Because in basketball, it's a continuous sport. There's no stopping of the clock if you turn the ball over. Like in football, you got to go play defense. So how fast you can transition to the next play is what we're looking at early. And with our style of play, we make a lot of mistakes, especially early on, as far as turning the ball over and taking some shots we shouldn't. We play pretty fast, and it takes a season and it takes 20 games to teach the kids how to play that way. and to get really good at it. So we say all the time that we're trying to be the best we can be in the last week of February and the first 2 weeks of March, when it really matters. And then we're always building and improving along those lines.
Now, the assumption may be when you're in this coaching role, you've got the parents on board, that things are good. Coaching is what everybody should do. It's a nice little, dare I say, side gig to earn a little extra income on your salary as a teacher or whatever somebody is doing in their profession. Yet I suspect you give a lot of time and effort to this, and there are times where you're questioning, like, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? Am I accurate here, or am I just way off base?
No, you're very accurate. So coming out of COVID, we ended up having a team that won a state championship, which was just awesome. But our last regular season game, we were bad. I mean, we got out rebounded by like 20 rebounds, gave up 30 points on second chance points, and got beat by the number 8 team in the league, and we were number 1 or 2 or something like that. And I was literally questioning everything that I was doing, because we were supposed to be good and we lost, and my assistant coaches had to talk me off the ledge, and it was just a hard time. And it was great that happened, because I had to think about how we were playing and what we were going to do in a tournament setting to win, because I wasn't coaching good enough at that time, and I didn't realize it until we lost. So just reflecting on some things and thinking about things, maybe change some things before we went into our tournament run. And the kids, actually, they couldn't believe it, because we've done the same thing all the time. Like, we want to be consistent. As a coach, you have to be consistent. You have to be the same person. You can't change things all the time, or kids get confused. They want to have some kind of a home base to go to, and they were floored. I could just see it in their eyes when I told them what we were changing. They couldn't believe we were doing it, but they believed in it, because I admitted that what we were doing wasn't good enough at the time, and it was my decision, or I was the reason it wasn't good enough. So they respected that honesty, and they bought in, and we played well at the end. But when you're losing, or when the kids maybe aren't responding in time, or in track and field, it's always a struggle to get kids out. In North Dakota, our track and field season starts at the end of February, and the snow's not off the ground until the end of April. So there's always challenges, and it means something. It matters. Even though my main job is teaching, I tell this to principals and other people that, you know what, our math scores aren't in the paper, but every night we play a basketball game, it's in the paper. That's what matters to the community. Even though schools are important, I'm not saying they're not, but if you lose some games and you go out in public, you might catch some crap, or people will wonder what's going on. Sometimes it's in jest, and sometimes they're actually serious going forward. But one thing that I got from my college experience, and then from a mentor that I've had, is once you take the job, someone already hates you, whether for no reason, that they just didn't want you there. So someone hates you, and if you can't deal with that, if you put all your time worrying about what other people think who aren't directly involved in your team, it's gonna eat you apart. So I try to not avoid that. I understand that's the reality, and at some point, every coach that does it his way, that is gonna get fired. I mean, I live by that. Like, once I'm not doing it right, I should be terminated. I'm okay with it, because I'm not going to compromise the things that we believe in and our pillars, honesty, integrity, those kind of things. And as long as I don't compromise those things, I'm okay with whatever happens. So that's my mental armor that I took into this job going in.
Yet, coaches are human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and we do have people that disagree with us, sometimes publicly, vehemently, sometimes subtly. And while we can have this, as you described it, mental armor, which I like, sometimes we have chinks in that mail, and sometimes those things hurt. And I wonder if you can share maybe some experiences where you've been unfairly treated, or been in a situation where you're like, I don't want to feel like this anymore based on what people are saying, because any of us who've been coaching have had to deal with some of those. And it's not just the, oh yeah, whatever, that's a minor thing, but some people can be quite hurtful. As you said, once you take the job, somebody already hates you.
The hurtful things are where, I kind of ended with, honesty, integrity, accountability. Those things are really important to me as a coach. And you're trying to instill those same values into your kids. And then when people who aren't directly involved in your team question that, I guess that's where it hurts, because I'm putting this out here. It's public. Like, I am a public person because of the job. It's a publicly facing job. So everything I say is public as in my role as a head coach. So I put it out there and I try to be as consistent as possible. And when people don't recognize that is tough to deal with. I had a student athlete many years ago. I was an assistant coach at the time. And I didn't know enough about his background and what he had at home and those kind of things. But I try to be the same coach for all my kids as far as what I demand from them and what I see they can give. So I was coaching him and getting on him about his technique, and his mom didn't like that. And instead of coming to me and having a conversation, it got escalated to the athletic director with a letter. And every letter is always an anonymous letter. Mm-hmm. People don't want to put their name on it because they view that their reasoning is, well, you'll retaliate against my kid. And that's not true. It just isn't. If your kid has a problem, I want to go talk to that kid and see what's going on. I've never had a bad experience with a student athlete after those conversations. But anyways, it got escalated. The stuff in there in the letter that I got shown by the AD wasn't all true. And actually, I've been working to get this kid to help him. I don't want credit for helping kids, so to speak. So I'll do a lot of stuff behind the scenes as far as getting them into better classes or getting them some academic assistance that they need. So I'll do those things, but I don't need someone to say, oh, he got me this help and whatever. I don't want that. So I'll do it behind the scenes. And none of that stuff got recognized. And then the worst part was the athletic director, even though we have a policy at our school where the athlete has to talk to the coach first, that entire policy was dropped. Didn't matter. And the athletic director didn't have my back. And that was hurtful, because you expect that when you're giving all you have to help other people's kids and make them better in life, that it would at least be thanked. And not everyone gets along with everyone, so I get that. But I thought that he recognized what I was trying to do. And in the end, he was just playing a political game. And he's no longer here, which is fine with me. But he wrote up some stuff that I still keep it. Believe me, I have all the bad stuff. I keep a file. And sometimes I read through it, and I just, because when things happen, you think they're not true, but as you reflect years later, you wonder maybe that was true. So at times I read through them just to make sure that I'm not going down those roads that people have accused me of going down before, as far as getting on the kids too hard or other things. It was really weird stuff. It was like I'd picked up a glove from the field and I'd asked who it was. No one replied, so I set the glove down, and apparently it was this kid's, and it was disrespectful. I set the kid's glove down in the same place I found it, so that was an offense that I had made. It was weird stuff like that. So, but the hurtful part was when the person who was supposed to, have my back and help me out did not. Acted like they were with me, and then in the meeting with the parent and the athlete, just a complete different person, different two faces. So that was tough. I was younger then, and I have some friends that coach, a lot of friends that coach, obviously, and we talk about sticking together as coaches and encouraging each other and being there for each other. And I had some good mentors and some good coworkers at the time that didn't let me sit around and sulk and do anything that would have kept me from moving on to the next thing. They were really good about pushing me forward because I had a group of people, good people around me that helped a lot. But that was a tough time, and that was about a decade ago, 10, 12 years ago.
And those situations are ones where a coach could say, you know what, this isn't worth it. I don't need this. I'm done. And we see a lot of coaches don't stay long in the profession. The tenure for coaches tends to be quite short, perhaps because of some of these reasons. One of the things that you've done was you entered our master's program. You're a graduate of our program, and I'm curious. You've been coaching for many years now. What was the motivation to do a master's in coaching when, theoretically you don't need it, right? You're already a head coach. You're already set in your system. You've coached at the school you have for a number of years. There's no real, dare I say, promotional benefit from, you're going from assistant to head coach, or you're going to this X, Y, and Z school if you get this master's. It didn't exist for you, really. So why do the master's in coaching?
I only do things that I think are worthwhile or I can learn. I don't care about any financial benefits or promotions. I really don't. I have some values that I, again, try to live by. And one of those things is do things that are worthwhile. And it took me about a year of kind of reading about what you guys do and looking at some stuff and following your posts on Twitter. And I realized this is worthwhile. I can learn something here. I love learning. The journey is never, I don't want to be the same person next year as I am this year. It's just not, it's not interesting to me. I want to be more interesting and talk to interesting people and do things. And it even started in one of your classes, and I think you put a lot of quotes out there on Twitter at the time as you were doing Alex Ferguson's book with a class leading, and that actually started it. I started reading that book kind of on just following you and on that recommendation, and like this is great. And soccer is a different sport than anything I coach, but leading is leading. I remember I always look for a quote of the day on my basketball practice schedule where the kids have to memorize the quote and say at the end of the day and how it applies to what we're doing. So I'm looking up quotes from good coaches, and Anson Dorrance, the UNC soccer coach, he comes up a lot. So I started just researching him and then researching what people say about him. And Mia Hamm talks about he would be a successful coach in any sport he tried to coach because of how he does things. So I realized that I need to be more than you need to have an entire leadership system that you're implementing wherever you go and whatever you're doing, because I think it'll apply not just to coaching, but in any leadership applies in any realm. And if you're well led, if your organization is well led, you will usually be successful. And when those times happen where you're not successful, you'll be able to pull out of it because you have leadership. And that leadership aspect was probably the biggest reason I signed up for the FSU Coach Masters program.
thinking now in terms of holistically the course of your coaching career, what have you learned that others need to maybe be aware of, learn themselves, skills they need to develop, maybe even before they go into coaching?
The biggest skill that has helped me over the last decade is learning how to listen.
Mm.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I have a lot of drive time. Bus rides in North Dakota are long. So you put the headphones on and listen to things. And I started listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast. He's a business guy, but he interviews people, and he has a lot of introspective people with some deep thoughts, and they will turn it around on him and kind of let him be the experiment, and they'll interview him back. And one skill that I got from him is when he says, or when they say something that's maybe a little not controversial, but personal, and you're wondering where to go with that. Are they going to keep going or not? He'll just gently say, "Tell me more about that."
Mm-hmm.
And that cultivating that skill, especially post-COVID, with some of the conversations with my athletes, has been huge. I spent an entire practice couple seasons ago. We had a student athlete going through a lot of stuff, and it's practice time. Well, he and I met in the coach's office for the full 2 hours of practice. And it was him just talking about things, and I'd sit there and he would talk. And when he was done, I'd just say, "Tell me more." And he just kept talking. It was like a psychology session, more, not even a coaching session, but that's where I've evolved to, is the guy who takes care of these kids and helps them through their problems. Yep, basketball is important. And one thing that is not understood, I had a friend who I was bringing the coaching on our team. It was his first year, and that same day, he was having this really hard time with me not being at practice. Like, why is he just talking to his kid the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
But my trusted assistant, who's been my JV coach the entire time, like, "Don't worry, we got it." And they had a practice schedule. They ran through practice. Everything went just fine, and it was what was needed for everyone. And making a choice. I am the head coach, so I have to make choices. And I made a choice that day to not be at practice and be with this kid who needed someone to be with him. So, I mean, and I've seen both sides. I'm on the side that just says, "Tell me more and I'll listen." Even if it's about me, even if it's something I'm doing, I don't care. I mean, a 16 and 17-year-old kid has all these emotions, and they can be mad at you. They have every right to be mad at you. Maybe you did something wrong in their eyes. Who's to say that I have to control how someone else feels? That's wrong in my opinion. So I wanted to know everything that he was dealing with, between personal life, teammates, me, all those things. I let him talk, and it's an open place where they can say exactly what they want to say. There's no punishment for being critical. If you're not critical of me, then I think I'm doing everything hunky-dory, and it might not be. And then when they ask questions, I can explain things too, which helps. But like I said, I've seen both sides. I've seen coaches who bring a kid in to their office because the kid's having a hard time, and they'll ask leading questions and almost answer the question for him, like, "You don't think you should be playing more than so-and-so, do you?" Or, "You don't think you're our best scorer, do you?" Things with a negative connotation, and that just silences kids. And I've seen it way too often. And it's actually sad, and it's really ruined some kids' experience in all kinds of sports. So the ability to listen and allow kids to be critical of you, because at the end of the day, if you really know what you're doing and you have values that you're trying to teach and impart, you have to be reflective on yourself, and you also have to try to give those kids opportunities to be honest with you if you're not living up to those values. It's not, everyone's trying to make everyone better. Like, I've never been criticized by a student athlete who's not actually trying to help me. It's, and just recognizing that and getting your ego out of the way and just listening with real care is a great skill.
Yeah, active listening is a skill that we don't really practice very much, and is communication is a talk I do from time to time, and your comments reminded me of Lord Chesterfield's quote, which says, "Many a man would rather you hear his story than grant his request." And a lot of times we may not have the answers as coaches, we might not have the solutions, but sometimes they just need to get it out. And you being there and being willing to listen to that is often the catalyst for resolution, even if it's not something you can solve.
And I'll go in the same vein. The kids now know that it's an open space, like they can say those things. Because if you don't, and you have this conversation in your mind, like if you're a student athlete and you're having this two-way conversation in your own mind, like what's he going to think? You end up causing way more suffering to yourself than you would if you just asked those questions and had those conversations. And since we're quoting philosophers, Seneca said we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So just
I posted that yesterday, right?
Did you really?
Yeah.
It's a great one.
Yeah. Well, Adam, I want to be thoughtful of your time. I know most people watch this later or listen to it on our podcast. If they want to reach out to you for further discussion, conversation, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best place is on X or Twitter, and at head ball coach WF. My DMs are open, so if you want to have a conversation, send me something there, or just tweet at me, and we can start a conversation, because I love helping people and talking about these things.
Well, I appreciate your time today and sharing a little bit about your experience. Just a reminder, everybody, it's head ball coach WF if you want to reach out to Adam. Just a reminder, we try to do these every couple weeks, give or take, travel schedules and so on. So be sure to subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening from. But on behalf of myself, Tim Baghurst, and Adam, thanks so much for watching.
Thank you.